Abdul Bari Atwan is one of the leading journalists of his generation. He's a household face and name, certainly throughout the Middle East and far beyond. He's been the editor of al-Quds, al-Arabi. It's one of the leading pan-Arab newspapers, an independent Arab newspaper, which is in itself a rare thing, for my calculation, about 18 years.
Yes.
Now, I thought I already knew quite a lot about him. I've been following his work for a long time. But then I read his very fascinating book, and I discovered that in addition to his many other achievements, he's quite an accomplished, or was an accomplished goalkeeper, and a useful skill, I think, in his line of work. And he's also done an extraordinary variety of other really quite unpleasant jobs before finding his métier as a journalist. Now, this is a man who's interviewed Osama bin Laden, Margaret Thatcher,
all nice people.
Yasser Arafat many times, I think, Colonel Gaddafi. And I think despite several invitations, he never did actually meet Saddam Hussein, although he figures fairly prominently in Abdul Bari's professional profile. So it's hardly surprising, I think you'd agree, keeping that sort of company, that he's made waves and generated quite a lot of controversy. It's obviously just disappeared. Sorry. Old technology.
Yeah, start from the beginning.
I don't start all over again. I was just getting into my stride. Anyway, so having interviewed these sort of luminaries, he's had a lot of more than his fair share of trouble and controversy. Further up. Okay, is that better? Okay, very good. He's been accused of various terrible things, working for the Iraqi Secret Service and the Mossad, the sort of things that, in my view, combined, established very firmly his credentials as somebody who just about gets things right. Now, I expect there will be, and I hope there'll be a lot of questions from you in the audience, and there's a lot to talk about in the book and a lot of other things as well. So if I can just exercise my privilege as chairman of kicking off with one question about the place where your story begins, and that's Palestine.
Yeah.
Now, you were born in the Gaza Strip in 1950. That's just 2 years after the Nakba, the catastrophe that the creation of Israel meant for the Palestinians. And you grew up in a family of refugees from Ashdod, now the Israeli city of Ashdod. Perhaps you can talk a little bit about how that affected you and how it set you on the course of your very interesting life.
Oh, thank you, Ian, for this very lively and lovely introduction. I was born literally in a refugee camp in Gaza from a very big family. We are 10 children. And my father died when he was 42. I think if he survived, maybe he will be 20 by now. So, but I don't know, because I noticed that he was flirting with a widow there. So, but it seems God didn't wish, that we will be extended family. It was a hell of a struggle. He was very ill, and actually he had that time to feed 10 children and a father and a mother and aunties, sisters and uncles. So it was a heavy burden. So poor man, he could not cope. So maybe that's why this is one of the reasons. He had ulcer, and he died of bleeding ulcer in 1965. So that's when he died. So it was, as I said, it was a struggle. I remember all of us were born at home. No hospital at all, because in Gaza is still awful. So imagine, 58 years ago. So I remember when Daya, I don't know, my mom, she's always either actually pregnant or delivering. There's nothing in between. So we know she's delivering when the Daya come, a lady in a white robe, and she comes in. Then use the kerosene stove and hot some water, and we realize that we are expecting a little one, a boy, a girl, sometimes twin, God knows. So it's so for the bad luck of the Israeli, our women are very, very productive. So So anyway, it was a real struggle. So I remember we used in a refugee camp in a house. And I was born, as I was told, in a tent, which was very cold. It was in February. And we know February is the coldest month in Palestine, or in that part of the world. Mom we used to be sleeping beside, because the father cannot sleep beside the mom, because there is no place. So there is no bedroom, something like that. So we used to be, the mom here, and then the older, the youngest one, and then the second youngest, and the third, until the older one. So that's how it. So everybody, when there is a new arrival, he will take, the place of the first one, and it's like that. Schooling was UNRWA. It was actually United Nations organization. So I remember the first pair of shoes I had to wear. It was actually when I became 6 years of age, and we were not allowed to go to school barefooted. So it was a struggle, actually, first to find the shoes, pair of shoes, second to wear them. They are always tight, very tight. It's maybe 2 numbers short. So it is. So we use it only for the school parade, in order just to, So yeah, my family, as Ian said, we were in Ashdod. I remember my parents used to tell us we used to have land, we used to have, cows, used to have camels and donkeys, all kinds of animals. So my mother, as all Palestinian mother, I remember she was working all the time with the father on the fields there. And again, she was barefooted, and there is a very interesting story in the book. For example, I had one of my relatives who was very tall, very smart, very handsome, and this man discovered the enjoyment of Jaffa nightclubs and nightlife. He used to go in his donkey, sell the wheat or the corn, and then go and enjoy himself. One day he came back with a wife. She was very nice, very beautiful, and wearing shoes. So it was a revelation for our village, as I was told. A wife with the shoes. So they used to call her, a wife with the shoes, or a lady with the shoes. Because all of them, they were barefooted, including my mom, definitely. So the funny thing, then after 1948, we were driven out of Ashdod or Ashdod. We went to Gaza, to the refugee camps, and then 1956, Israeli occupied Gaza, and my father was about to be shot dead in that time. And then there's a story, Israeli colonel, he came and he saved them, because his father, who was actually among those people who were about to be executed. Anyway, in 1967, we discovered that suddenly about 3 Israeli Hachams, they came to the refugee camp, and they knocked at the door of this relative, and they said to him, we need Rachel. I said, what? I said, Rachel, where is Rachel? He said, we don't have somebody called Rachel. I said, no, your wife is a Jew. And we are offering you and your family and your children to come to Israel and being naturalized, and we will give you a mortgage, we'll give you a house, we'll give you everything, because you are Jews. So the man was shocked. He thought, and we were shocked too. So we discovered that the lady with the shoes, she was a Jewish lady from Tel Aviv. So that was the first intermarriage in our family or in our refugee camps. Anyway, but he has to actually shout at them and said, look, and she came out and said, look, I don't want to know you, I don't want to speak to you, please, I don't want scandal in this place. So they left. Imagine. So, sorry?
The woman with the shoe, did she have children?
Yeah, she had, again, we have a common thing, Jews and Arabs, we have plenty of children. So she kept the tradition in the family anyway. So it was actually a very, very difficult life. I remember, I wanted to be a journalist from the day one, simply because I want to express our feelings. We were suffering all the time. I remember we starved, literally starved. And the luxury things we used to have is a boiled egg, and this boiled, our chicken produce a very small eggs. I don't know why. Maybe they are anemic or something like that. So imagine that when we have this boiled egg, we have a fight with our brothers, for example. Each two, they have to divide this egg. So we used to use sort of a thread in order to be just, and we never win. So anyway, so it was really a struggle again. I wanted to be a journalist because I want to express this feeling. I want to talk about our miserable way of life. But at the same time, I was good at football. I played for the school team. I played for the university team. And one day I was spotted with a scout. And he said, you are good. So why don't you come and train with us? And it was Zamalek football club in Egypt, which is well known. Yeah. So in that time, they didn't pay £100,000 a week for the players. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here by now. So, but I choose to be a journalist. Actually, the idea of this book, I was talking to the late Magasoub about this story about journalism and about football. And she said, look here, there is excellent, she didn't know I was a goalkeeper at that time. She said, yeah, I have a good title, I could be an Arab Beckham. So I said, no, not Beckham. I could be an Arab Gordon Banks. He said, it doesn't work, because Gordon Banks hasn't got the Spice Girl wife. So so we have to change the whole project. Actually, when I decided to be a journalist, my family were against it, and there was revolutions in the whole family. They don't want me to study journalism simply because first, there is no Arab media to work for. It's very poor in that time and unprofessional. Second, it is a very dangerous job. And when you know that, 250 journalists were killed in Iraq, so you understand why journalism is not really the best job in our part of the world. Second, either you have two choices. If you want to express your feeling, your ideas, either you are arrested, you're going to be arrested, or you killed. So there is no other choice, and you will be poor and starving. Education for us as Palestinian, it is investment. It is a long-term investment. They use to send us universities in order to help our families and to help our brothers and sisters. And it is a burden on you. I was responsible. For example, my brother paid for my education, and I paid for the education of at least 3 brothers. It is like that. It is rolling investment. So I was stubborn, as I am now, so I insisted that I should be a journalist, I should study journalism, and here we are. It worked for me. I studied journalism in the Egyptian Cairo University also, but the problem is journalism as itself is not a job security. So before that, when I moved from Gaza, I went to Jordan. And again, because I have to support my family, I worked as a worker in a tomato factory in Amman. And then I worked in a rubbish van in Amman Council there. So it was very, very hard. And after that, I had to move to Cairo. My brother was graduated, and then he sponsored my education. So that's why I moved to Cairo, and I studied Cairo University journalism. And as I said, because I wasn't sure that I will find a job when I'm going to be graduated, because most of Palestinians used to study either English literature or mathematics or engineering or something, where to find jobs in the Gulf states, which were booming at that time. So working as teachers, because also teaching was a very, very prosperous job. So who will employ a journalist as a teacher or as engineer or as... So it was a very bleak future. Anyway, I had to apply for a license to be a taxi driver as a job security. And also I did study English translation at American University in Cairo in order again to have another qualifications. I discovered that journalism is not really an easy job. You have to work very hard to be a journalist. And when I was graduated, I didn't know where to go. So Gaddafi in that time was a champion of Arab nationalism at that time, and he, for the first time, we have an Arab country which opened the border for Arabs to go there without a visa. So, but how to go there without a visa, and how, you know, you need to. So I don't know. It seems there was somebody from Libya. It seems his driver died or something like that, or was ill, and he needed somebody to drive the car from Cairo to Tripoli. So it was a great escape from Cairo. I had to drive the car and the man from Cairo to Tripoli, and it was about maybe 2,500 kilometers, and it was in one go, you know, because he's the boss, and you have to oblige. I don't know how I made it. And in the end, he gave me 10 pounds in the end of the trip, you know, so that's it, thank you very much. So where to go, I don't know. So
can I ask a question? That there's a very poignant moment when you're describing, I think, one of the courses you're on in Egypt, and the course finishes and everybody else prepares to leave, and one of your teachers, I think, or colleagues says, can you please give him a forwarding address? And you say, rather sadly, well, I don't have a forwarding address because I'm a Palestinian, I have nowhere to go. So you move around, you've been to Jordan and to Egypt and to Libya, and then you end up, I think, in the early 70s?
Yeah.
In London.
Yeah, late 70s.
Late 70s.
Yeah, it was very, very difficult moment for me because, you know, it was a graduation party, and for me it was one-way traffic, just taking the addresses of my colleagues and my teachers, and cannot give address because I don't know where I will be. So it was very sad. Everybody knows where to go after that. They know they have addresses. I was the only one among my colleagues who hadn't, you know, at that time, address to exchange with my friends. So, and I think maybe, you know, until later, and I admit, you know, the first country I settled in is London. Before that, it was a nomadic life. You know, I'm really grateful to Colonel Gaddafi, by the way. We have to give him credit. You know, because when I arrived at Tripoli, I applied, there were 2 newspapers only, so I applied for both of them, and I was rejected. So I said, you know, we have plenty of people like you, just, you know, just go away. So we, Palestinian and Arabs, always we have contacts, and somebody said, why don't you write articles? Why don't you write articles, and they will pay you for this, you know, like freelance. As you know, you're staying, doing nothing, just. So I remember I did cheat. I went to the main bookseller or newspaper agent. I bought the Times newspaper at that time, and they were writing, there was a story, you know, American supplying the Shah of Iran with a very sophisticated weapons. At that time it was F5, Phantom 5, I think. So as a deprived Palestinian child and revolutionary, and the left, it was in its peak in that time, not like nowadays, it was fashionable. So it was a great story. So I used the figures and the facts and how American actually supplying the Shah of Iran. And we hate the Shah of Iran anyway because he's pro-Israeli, he's pro-American, so definitely has to be hated by me, you know, especially when you are 22 years of age at that time. So I wrote a very fiery article, you know, say, you know, why America is actually arming the Shah of Iran. They want to turn him as a police of the Gulf region and these kind of things. And, you know, I put all the Arab strong words, and our language is full of these words. And, you know, in that article, I gave it to somebody from Al-Azhar, which is, you know, a religious university there, to actually proofread it and adjust it. He made it worse because he used very classical Arabic. I have to rewrite it again from the beginning. Anyway, I went to the newspaper saying I got an article. Article? Yes. Oh, that's good. Yeah, my friend who was working for that newspaper said, okay, give it to me. So why that? I said, look, you know, we cannot. You are stupid. I said, you know, I know I am stupid, but why? He said, you know, because, you know, we are not allowed to publish any articles against any of the Muslim leaders. You are criticizing the Shah of Iran. He's a Muslim leader. We have instruction that we should not actually criticize him. Anyway, so I said, what shall I do? I spent about 4 days writing this bloody article. Now I have to look for another one. So I spent a lot of money to buy the Times in that time. Anyway, so I wish I didn't. Anyway, I'm a subscriber for The Guardian for the last maybe 27, 28 years. So anyway, so but for my bad luck, for my good luck, you know, I said, okay, I will show it to the editor-in-chief and we'll see what will happen. So I went back to, you know, I took I was a refugee in my one of my cousin's house. He was a teacher, so I stayed with him. 2 days later, he came, my cousin, because I was sleeping. What shall I do? They go teach, and then I sleep. So he came back with a copy of the newspaper. He said, look, wake up. I said, wake up for what? What shall I do? He said, look at this newspaper. It was al-Balaghi newspaper. It was tabloid, He said, your article. I was shocked. It was my first article, So it was on the front page saying, why the Americans are arming the Shah of Iran by, the great writer Abdul Bari Atwan. So it was on the front page, and then it was in the middle, spread, the whole articles. So I said, what happened? You refused the article. He said, oh, Colonel Gaddafi in that time, he had a row with the Shah of Iran. So he found this article. So he said, publish it and employ the writer immediately. He's a good writer. So because of Gaddafi, actually, and because he hated the Shah of Iran in that week in particular, so I became a journalist. Otherwise, I could end, a teacher in Kufra, in south of Libya or somewhere. So Gaddafi actually gave me the first chance in journalism. But afterward, really, I couldn't last. I couldn't survive simply because Gaddafi used to come to the newspaper and look at the articles and look at the news. And, no, this is not, behaving as editor. This is not acceptable. This is too much. This is silly. This is such a... So I barely lasted about a year, and then I immigrated again to Saudi Arabia, where I worked for Al-Madina. Al-Madina, my experience in Saudi Arabia was extremely funny because, it was a religious newspaper, and Saudi Arabia at that time, it was booming. The most important, there's plenty of things about it in the book anyway, but the most, the best example of the way there, I spent the first face of women I saw in Saudi Arabia, it was after 6 months of my stay. So, the only face I used to say is my brother wife, who is my cousin. So it was a very close society, and you don't need to shave, you don't need to comb your hair, you don't need, for what, If so to do what? There is no nightclubs, there is nothing, there's nothing at all. So I remember the funny things, which I remember I was in the newspaper because I was the only person who actually can handle the English language, and suddenly I was in that newspaper, and there was a huge demonstration, people running and dashing, shouting. I said, what happened? Revolution in Saudi Arabia? And suddenly, somebody said, sir, you don't know what's happening. I said, what's happening? He said, there is a lady in the newspaper. He said, what? I said, what's wrong? What's strange? I said, look, there is a lady in the newspaper. This is the first time we see a lady in this bloody newspaper. I said, okay, let me see. So left my office and looked, a very tall, busty American with very tight jeans and a vest, and she was ginger, and she was screaming. I said, simply because I'm the only one, as I said, I said, look, translate. I said, why you are screaming? What's happening? I said, look, this is bloody newspaper. I said, they don't understand me. I said, okay, what's the problem? Tell me what's the problem. He said, I want to put an ad. I said, okay, no problem. There is ad department and, the advertising department. You can go there and they will put this ad. He said, yes. I lost my dog. I said, dog? I said, yes. And I want to advertise for my dog. And I want to put a reward for anybody who is bringing this dog. In Jeddah at that time, there was about, 500,000 stray dogs. So imagine, this is one thing. Second thing, this is 1976, I remember, yeah. The second thing, which is really funny about it, it is not allowed to advertise for dogs. It's not allowed to advertise for human beings who are missing, children who are missing. So to advertise, and dog is considered, dirty in that part of the world. If you touch it, you have to go and wash. So imagine to advertise for a dog. Anyway, I said, okay, don't worry. I know we are heading toward a problem. So I said, okay, leave the ad with me, and I will handle it. She said, oh, you are a good man. Thank you very much. You saved my day. And anyway, so it's okay. Don't worry. This is my telephone number. So I know it wouldn't be published. And she bombarded me with phone calls, where is my ads? Where is my dog? As if, I'm the father of the dog. So anyway, there was a diplomatic crisis at that time simply because the American embassy has to interfere, I think. So it was from Saudi Arabia, I came to London here. And it was actually a cultural shock for me. Suddenly, I remember, I lost my hair. I used to have a very, very, very big hair. It was like an umbrella actually. It's very afro and very. So I, shared a flat with another colleague called Adil Bishtawi, who was more sophisticated, more civilized because he was married to an English lady. So he said to me, look, I went to Hilton Park Lane because, I wanted to have a drink in that time. So I want to see Hilton Park Lane, because it's big. And so the doorman looked at me, I was wearing a leather jacket and, something, a trouser, third word trouser. You can imagine how it's, So he looked at me, said, yes, sir. Said, I want to get in. Said, get in where? Said, the hotel. Where in the hotel? Said, to the bar, to have a drink. Said, do you know anybody in this? I said, no, I don't know anybody. Said, so you are not allowed in. Please, go away. Actually, he dismissed me. So he sent me back. So I was really shocked. I went to my advisor, my flatmate. I said, look, his name's Adil. I said, that's what happened. He said, yes. Do you think they will let you in with your umbrella? They will think you are a thug. You are a crook. So we have to actually change your image a bit. You have to remove this umbrella first, and you have to have a proper Western dress. You have to have a tie. You have to have a jacket. You have to have a suit. You have to have we have to polish you. And my first experience, I said, okay, where shall we start? He said, we have to take you to a hairdresser. Hairdresser? I said, yes. In that time, I remember it was, I think it was, summer of 1978, when the Israeli invaded Lebanon at that time. So we were very furious because the Israelis sent their tanks to Lebanon, PLO was there, and some guerrilla movement. So, we were really in our very upset. Anyway, so he took me to a barber and unisex hairdresser. Said, unisex, I saw 6 there. Said, no, don't worry, it is safe. Just get in. Yeah. So I went in, if you are coming from Saudi Arabia, what to do, So, there were ladies, and again in their fest, and they smelled very nice. And so she said, first we have to, wash your hair. So, okay, wash my hair. My umbrella. So and after that, it was the first time in my life. I was really, it is embarrassing. It is, the only lady who touched my hair and washed my hair is my mom. When she used to bath us maybe once every 10 days or 2 weeks. Anyway, so, okay, so I had to be peaceful. And then we sat there, they asked the question, where do you come from? I said, I come from Saudi Arabia. I thought, Saudi Arabia, maybe it's more secure. So she said, what do you think of what's happening in Lebanon? I said, what's happening in Lebanon? This bastard Menahem Begin, he is killing our people. He is, doing this. Those Israeli, they need actually somebody who's strong to destroy them. And, they took our land. Imagine that, our speech in that time. So, and she was, snipping my hair, and I was, like a Kalashnikov, without stopping at all. And I want to convert her to our cause in that time. So, it is a duty for me to make her on our side, So, my English was very poor anyway, but I managed. And then she didn't say a single word. I said, what do you think, Said, Menahem Begin is the boss. No, those Palestinians are terrorists and they deserve to be wiped out completely of Lebanon and we should destroy them. And I looked at her, and she had a Star of David. Said, she said, look, my parents are Israeli, I am Israeli, and I know those terrorists, and we have. I said, oh my God. So, I lost the umbrella, I lost everything, I lost my hair, and I decided I will never go to any barber, and I will keep my mouth sealed completely. So for the last 20 years, I go to a separate barber, And this separate power, you know, I think he's about to lose his sight, but anyway, he's better than that. And every time I'm there, you know, he cursed the Turks and the Muslims and the English and the British and everybody. I don't say any word. You know, just leave it for him, just to be safe.
Can I divert you from your very political haircut into a more political question? And then I'm going to stop speaking. I just want to get to there's there's lots of interesting things in the book. One of the most interesting revelations in the book is one of the meetings you had with Yasser Arafat sometime after he signed the Oslo Agreement in 1993 with the Israelis. Obviously a huge event in Palestinian history. And Arafat told you that he had signed this agreement only in order to buy time in the struggle with Israel. That is to say, it wasn't real. Can you talk about that a bit and see how people respond? Because I think it's a very, very interesting story.
Yes, you know, my relation with Yasser Arafat was a love-hate relationship, because, you know, I never understand, or I never accepted actually the way he used to handle the Palestinian affairs, and especially the way he used to buy people. He is a master in buying people, using money there. Anyway, so I was doubtful when it comes to Oslo Agreement. I really didn't like it, and I thought it wouldn't work because, you know, both sides are not ready for a big deal like this. Anyway, so I remember I said to him, look, you know, you are gambling. I said, yes. He said, it wouldn't work. I said, I know. I said, the Israeli wouldn't give you a state on the West Bank and Gaza Strip. He said, I want to buy time. And because, you know, actually he said to me, okay, let us walk outside, because he knows that his headquarters is bugged. And he said, let us walk. So he said to me, listen, I know the Israeli wouldn't give me Jerusalem. I know they wouldn't give me independent state in the West Bank. But, you know, I'm fed up being exiled in Tunisia here. I want to go back to Palestine. And I promise you, if it doesn't work, I will turn it against the Israeli. We started the first intifada. I will start the second intifada. And two-state solution, it wouldn't work. The final solution, only one-state solution. And I will work for that. So, and he said to me, don't write anything until my death. You know, don't say anything or write anything until I pass away. If I do, yeah, you write it. And I did write it. Arafat, actually, as I said, you know, my relation with him was a love-hate relationship. I remember one day when the Jordanian decided to cut or sever our relation with the West Bank at that time, King Hussein, I went to interview him in Bulgaria. And I had a car accident in my way there, so I had a whiplash. But anyway, I decided to go because it was a good story. Anyway, so, and you know, I wanted to buy newspapers and magazines in order to read it during the flight. So I was shocked to see a little picture of Yasser Arafat in the top corner of the Playboy magazine. I said, my God, what Arafat is doing at the Playboy magazine? Seriously. So I bought a copy. And you know, Playboy, a model, you know, a model, yeah. So I took the copy with me. When I went to see Arafat, there was a person who was a very funny guy called Abu Jamal al-Surani. He was a member of the PLO executive committee. So I said to Arafat, you know, I showed it to him. I said, you know, Arafat, you know, I looked at the magazine. I said, I don't know, you have a very, very big asset, to be honest. You know, I thought, you know, I said, what are you doing at the Playboy? I said, Playboy? I said, yes, you know, there's a huge interview, and you are the cover, on the cover of the magazine, and with, you know, I said, and the Playboy? I said, yes, Playboy. I said, you know, let me see. I said, no, just, you know, let me read you the headlines and these kind of things. So Arafat, you know, he was extremely embarrassed. I said, no, I didn't give an interview to Playboy. What happened? There was a freelance journalist, and he interviewed me, and you know, he told me that he will publish it in the Washington Post. It will be 2 pages in the Washington Post, and it seems me that bastard, he sold it to, you know, the Playboy. So here I am. He was lying, definitely. You know, he knew it is a Playboy magazine. So Arafat, actually, I dedicated that chapter in that book about, you know, the other side of Yasser Arafat and a lot of human story, especially once, you know, when he declared or announced his marriage to Shah Arafat, which was very funny. I remember he was paying a visit to India, and he was very close to Rajiv Gandhi in that time, where you know, so we went there, and she was with him, Shah Arafat, his wife. So he wanted her to be part of the official delegation. And our ambassador there, so-called Palestinian ambassador in India, he actually refused. He said, who is she? She's a secretary. She should go and stay with the secretary. No, she shouldn't be part of the delegation. So the people around Arafat say, look, please put her. She's an economic advisor. So said, no way. You know, Palestinians are sometimes, you know, very stubborn. Said, no way. You know, she should stay with the secretary, or even in the kitchen. So she shouldn't be part of the delegation. So the entourage of Arafat knew she is his wife. But this man and Arafat cannot interfere, you know. So that man, that poor man, I remember, you know, a month later, I don't know, he was sent maybe to, from India, maybe to Chile in South America or something like that. He was exiled completely. So there is a chapter about Arafat in the book, and there's a lot of stories about that.
There's a lot of wonderful stories in the book. I wonder whether we shouldn't open up the forum for questions to you on anything at all, or I can go on for ages, but I think it would be good if people wanted to. Saad can't restrain himself here in the front row, but I think you need to wait for the mic, Saad. Just a moment. Thanks.
I know the book is about bin Laden, but before bin Laden became a hero, let's talk about Arafat. Was Arafat paranoid about his food? And because I understand, or I believe that he was poisoned. You know, did he tell you anything regarding his fear about dying by poison or whatever?
Arafat, you know, the worst thing could happen to you if you are invited to dinner with Arafat. This is, you know, this is a very, very, you know, awful experience, simply because his food is like hospital food. Everything's boiled. And usually, you know, he preferred to feed you by your hands. You know, just, you know, take a, you know, chicken and said, put it in your food. You must eat this. You must eat that. And the worst thing is, you know, he is fond of halwa. We have this Middle Eastern halwa from sesame seeds and these kind of things. And usually he just, you know, and put it in your mouth. So you have to eat the halwa. He's a chairman. You cannot say to him. So yes, he was conscious about his food when he was besieged in Ramallah, in his headquarters in Ramallah. I was told, actually, the fridge, he thought the Israeli will poison him. Sharon will poison him. So he had a special lock. And he was only eating, you know, tinned foods. So canned foods. And he had the lock and the key of the lock in his pocket. So he is the only one who can open this you know, fridge and get the you know, the cans out of it. So he was very conscious about his food and careful about it. The problem is he doesn't eat a lot. He was just eating very little. But the problem is if you are sitting beside him, you know, feeding you like a duck all the time, just.
One of your great claims to fame is that you interviewed Osama bin Laden. I think people know that. I'm sure there'll be questions about it, but I wonder whether, as you're probably the only person in the room and possibly within a radius of thousands of miles who's actually met him, what if he's, as we don't know that he isn't, if he's alive and still running Al-Qaeda, how do you think he sees things now? What's the view from Waziristan or wherever he is? From your experience, from your knowledge of him?
Yeah, I'll tell you something. Before I go to, you know, shall I say it? Okay, I'll say it. I am grateful to two people in my life, journalistic life. Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden, I'll tell you why. Osama bin Laden, because he gave me that interview and he elevated me from an Arab journalist and local journalist, you know, to international journalist and in the international scene and lecturing circles, and, Sky News, BBC, Newsnight, people says there, everywhere. Anyway, so Saddam Hussein, because, you know, I remember our newspaper was very poor and very amateurish when we started publishing. and suddenly Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. So the media, the Arab media, was fully controlled by Saudi Arabia and Gulf states and Egypt and Syria. So we were maybe one of the fewest newspaper who took a very, very independent line at that time. So because of Saddam Hussein invasion, our circulation doubled and tripled and then doubled again. And and I was one of the few voices in the Arab world who actually talking about what's happening in that part. But some people misinterpreted, thinking that I am supporting Saddam Hussein, which is, you know, as Ian said, he invited me 3 times, and his people begged me to go, and I refused simply because already I'm labeled as Saddam Hussein agent or Mukhabarat, Secret Service of Saddam Hussein. Anyway, so I didn't go. I never accepted that invitations. Again, when he disappeared after 9th of April 2003, I was lucky. A month later, he sent me 5 handwritten letters to our newspaper. We received it in our fax, so it was a scoop for me. But there are many people who suspected that how Abdul Bari Atwan realized this is, you know, the signature of Saddam Hussein. Somebody said, oh yes, because he used to sign a check for him and to finance his newspaper. So he knew it from the checkbook. Anyway, so I remember once I was interviewed by O'Reilly of Fox News, this, you know, horrible O'Reilly who just, you know, corner people and shred them. He said to me, usually his style is to start the interview with soft questions and then keep the knockout in the last bit of the interview. He said, he asked me, well, Mr. Atwan, how do you explain to me that, you know, you are dealing with fugitives like Saddam Hussein and like Osama bin Laden? You are a box, you know, PO box of Osama bin Laden sent you emails, and Saddam Hussein also sent you letters. How can you explain that? It is, you know, you are dealing with terrorists, fugitives. So I said to him, look, you know, if you look at Osama bin Laden, he's a far right. He's a fundamentalist. He is Islamist. He is radical. He's Wahhabist. And if you look at Saddam Hussein, he is secular. He is Arab nationalist. He's a leftist. So it means if this far right to me, and far left, right to me, it means I'm in the middle. he didn't like my answer. He said, look, you know, he said, but you are dealing with those fugitives. You know, I said to him, look, if tomorrow somebody came to you with a videotape of Osama bin Laden, it was, you know, very, very exclusive at that time to Al Jazeera. If he comes to you with a videotape of a speech or interview with Osama bin Laden, will you say to him, no, thank you very much, go to CNN or, for example, ABC, or will you take it? No, no, no. I said, look, listen, answer. You know, we are professional. Will you take this tape or not? You know, I said, it's not my question. I said, answer me now. So he said, no, thank you. The interview is finished. So about Osama bin Laden, again, I remember when I met him, it was a very, very dangerous journey.
1996, right?
In November 1996, it was 17th of November 1996. It was very, very cold. It was about 3,000 meters in the mountains of Afghanistan. I think it was 20 to 25 degrees below zero that night. I arrived about midnight. It was shocking experience, to be honest. First, when I arrived, I thought, you know, I will be received. He's still, you know, belonging to the wealthiest family in the Arab world. After 8 hours, you know, driven around the mountains, and which was very, very dangerous driving, and it was, you know, a road digged for camels and for donkeys and for horses, but not for cars. And what actually, I was extremely worried all the time, what will happen to me? Because the road, you know, around the mountain was very narrow, just for one car. So the higher we go, the more worried I am, simply because if a car from the other direction comes, you know, so are we going to go back, start from the square one again? So it was very, very, very tight. Anyway, so what made it worse, when we, you know, went up, it was very slippery, and this driver, he thought he is driving the M1, you know, just, you know, very young, about 18 years of age. So I was scared to death. Anything, if we slept, we will end in the bottom of you know, the valley there, and we will be eaten by, you know, stray dogs or wolves or anyway. So, but the dangerous thing is, when we near the top, it was slippery, icy, and then they stopped the car. stopped the car. I said, maybe something happened, maybe, Taliban patrol or something, American or something like that. So then there were rocks falling and blocking the streets, blocking the road. So they start, those Al-Qaeda men, they start removing the rocks from the way. And then, I heard them saying, it could be more of these rocks, and we have to be careful. And so I said, is it normal? This? I said, yes, it's normal. 2 weeks ago, Abu Qatada, Abu Umar, Abu Ahmad, they were driving, and then, a huge rock fall on them. They died, they are martyrs, they are in heaven. I said, so it could happen? Yes, it could happen. So we go to heaven. I said, you go to heaven. I don't want to go to heaven. So, and then, the most dangerous are another things. When I arrived there to the cave, which was on the top of the mountain, so again, I was very hungry. I expected a feast, stuffed lamb, stuffed camel, stuffed chicken, anything stuffed, doesn't matter. I'm not fussy. So I sit down in the cave there with Osama bin Laden and his entourage, and suddenly, there was a battleground, rockets and anti-aircraft guns, and everybody in the cave, they catch the gun and then they run away. And I was alone there, and pop, 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 pop. Oh my God, this exactly after 10 minutes or 7 minutes of my arrival. I don't know anybody there. So I don't know what happened. I said, that's it. The American, maybe they were following me, and they realized and they attacked, and that's it. Finished. I start, reciting what I know of Quran. And it's very little anyway. So, and that's it, So, and suddenly after maybe 20 minutes, they came back and they said, Osama bin Laden said to me, sorry, we are doing a military maneuver. I said, military maneuver? I said, yes, we have to do it from time to time. I said, but you should tell me about it. I'm your guest, Said, okay, but, it is like that. Anyway, I don't know whether they did it deliberately because to impress me, but then, half an hour later, they did the same thing. And Osama bin Laden jumped and said, you are not leaving here. Either we die together or you go together. But, so, again, the funny story about this, I couldn't sleep that night, the first night, simply because first there were about 5 diesel cars on the front of the cave, and they were running, the motor were running all the night, so very noisy. And the cave is not double glazing anyway. There's no nothing that you cannot expect it to be double glazed. There's one thing. Yeah. Second thing is, I was thinking how I am going back with this lunatic driver again, 8 hours, in a slippery road. When you go up, maybe the speed is less, but when you go down, if suddenly he lost control, where will we end? So it was another second thing which is frightening me. The third thing, because I was worried and I couldn't sleep, I noticed there is something in my. We were actually in the same cave with Osama bin Laden. He was in this bed, and it's not bed, it's branches of trees and made a bed, and a mattress there. Maybe it was used for 2,000 years before Jesus Christ's birth, So you cannot distinguish the color there. You cannot recognize the color. Anyway, so he was here and I was here. He immediately fell asleep, but I assure you, he wasn't snoring. This is what good things. Anyway, so there is something in my back, so I wanted to find out what's there. So I put my head, and there was a gun, and then there is RPG rockets, and then a box of hand grenades. So I was literally sleeping on an arsenal. So imagine that somebody like me who is in living all the time in 5-star hotels, and just to live in this. Yeah, the food there, Saad, my friend, he asked me, how is the food there? Again, I said I was starving, so I expected these tough things, So in the end, I think I was. Anyway, I said dinner, and when the dinner served, we were about maybe 12 people or 10 people in that cave, and the dinner served, but it has to be in the ground, definitely. There's, plastic things. So what the dinner was consist of fried potato, swimming in a bed of sea there, a bed of oil, just this cotton oil, which is well known in Egypt. And then cheese, a rotten cheese, very smelly. It's not like the French cheese. It's smelly because maybe it was used for 100 years. And so it's And then, there was fried eggs, maybe about 6 fried eggs. So, and the bread, which, so first thing, I start with the bread. It seems the bread was baked with sand. So, and imagine that. So I couldn't chew it, just want to, and then swallow it. And I said, out of politeness, I will start with this rotten cheese to show that I am polite and I'm, and then I'll go to the main dish, with the best dish, which is the eggs, the fried eggs, So forget about cholesterol and these. It's all right, yeah. So had one bite of this cheese, and then one bite of this tomato. I looked at the eggs, disappeared. So I ended with that food. Then lunch is boiled rice and some potato cooked in tomato sauces and these kind of things. So it was anyway. I ended with a diarrhea for about 8 days continuously. So that's how was the food, Mr. Jabbar.
Audience.
Thank you very much. And Ali Ahmed, with no affiliation. My question is, you've been a journalist for a very long time. As you describe, a region with no free press. With no free press.
Yeah.
I happen to know being in Damascus and buying al-Quds, al-Arabi, and then when I left and opened them, because I couldn't find some of the pages inside. And then I thought I bought it probably strong with it, and then went back and I found out that was really deliberately done. What was your experience being, that sort of position journalist, with your relationship with the leaders of the Middle Eastern leaders? Thank you.
It is very rosy experience. I received about 4 death threats. One of them from Syria, one of them from Jordan, and other from, I don't know, I can't remember. One from the Ku Klux Klan, and one from a right-wing organization in Germany. So you name it, Arabs, and all of them, and one Mossad. I don't know how, whether it's true or not. So talking about dealing with the Arab regimes, actually. We are banned in at least 4 or 5 countries in the Middle East. We are banned in Syria. We are banned in Saudi Arabia. We are banned in Egypt. We are banned in Kuwait. And I don't know. I think I should talk about the countries which allow us in, because it is very, very bad experience. Whenever you write a story, immediately, if the government, they don't like it, you are agent, either Israeli agents or American CIA or FBI or British MI5 or MI6. Usually the accusation is there waiting for you. So they never actually allow you to write and to be a professional journalist. Again, always we wanted to produce a professional newspaper. We wanted to be as objective as we can. But this kind of things is a luxury in the Arab world. No, you have to praise the president or the king or the emir. Otherwise, you are a bad journalist. This situation continued until Al Jazeera actually started, and then al-Arabi and others, and the maps, the media maps started to change a bit. Before Al Jazeera and before al-Arabi, there used to be only one channel, one official channel, television channel, and this channel is either the president speaking, and if when he finished, the prime minister, when he finished, the foreign minister, when he finished, the interior minister, and so on like that. And I remember there's a joke, a Libyan joke. They were the son of Gaddafi playing cards with the son of the singer of Gaddafi, the favorite singer of Gaddafi. So, and he said to him, look, we are tired of playing cards. Let us switch on television, to see what's happening. He said, no, just don't worry. Who will be there? Either your father or my father. So it's better to forget about it completely. So, my colleague here, Saad Jabbar, he is from Algeria, and I know Algerian president, for example, the minimum he speaks for is 3.5 hours. So imagine that. So this is the type of journalism they wanted us to practice in our part of the world. Yeah. Yeah.
well, yeah, gentleman there needs the mic. Just there.
In your long journalistic career, did you come across Edward Said? And if you knew about Edward Said, what your view of Edward Said?
Yes, I was a friend of Edward Said. When he used to come to London, we used to talk, we used to meet, we used to have dinners. And I remember when I was working for a Saudi magazine called Al-Majalla, we decided to actually ask him to write a column for us. And I remember I did negotiate with Edward Said for, we thought it is, maybe just £50 an article or something like that. We didn't expect. I was shocked when Edward Said said to me, look, every word is $1. If it is N, is $1. If it is circumstances, is $1. so when I actually passed this message to my editor at that time, said to him, look, Edward Said is willing to write, if you want a weekly column, he will write a weekly column. If you want, a monthly column, he will do it. Fortnight column, yes, it's all right. But the problem is he wanted $1 for each article, for each word. So he was shocked. He said, $1 for each word? I said, yes, this is Edward Said, He said, but we are paying, people, £50 per article. At that time, it was about 1983 or 84 at that time. I said, but, Edward Said is different from other people. Anyway, we didn't have a budget for him. And actually, we had to ask him to write a monthly column for our magazine. And he actually trusted me to translate this column. So it was a painful, because I have to translate it and then send him that translation. And then he wouldn't like certain words. He used to understand Arabic, but he never tried to speak Arabic or to actually tell us or tell people that his Arabic is not bad at all. So, it was a painful experience. But anyway, I remember we made a mistake, and because we were the only non-Saudi newspaper at that time, so we had our enemies. We had our, competitors who didn't like us, and they were fishing for troubles. I remember one of our, editor. He put a picture of Star Coup from the Daily Mail, and somebody said to Star Coup, al-Quds, al-Arabi published your picture illegally. So we don't know about these copyrights in that time. Imagine coming from against Saudi Arabia. So the copyright is, thriving in the Arab world. So, and I had a problem with Star Coup, and Star Coup was, pornography. Yeah. Anyway, so we had to pay £1,000 for a little pictures like this. So anyway, Edward Said. Because if we go to court or solicitors, solicitors in this country, once they listen to you, it is a £500. If they send a letter, it's another £500. If argue the case, it is another £500. So it's better to pay £1,000 from the beginning, and that's it. And our colleagues solicitor here. Anyway, so Edward Said, again, I remember when he went back to the West Bank and Gaza Strip, he wrote about 3 articles to the Observer, the marvelous articles, the way he described the situation in Gaza and the West Bank and Jerusalem and his family house there. So actually we got some extract from that, and we reproduce it in our newspaper. Somebody informed about us, and then again, the Observer sent us, the legal department, huge letters again, and to go to the solicitor, and again problems, and said, you have. And when Edward Said knew about it, he was furious and actually said, why should you pay to them? It's my copyright, it's not the Observer copyright. So he was a great man, and in his last days, actually, he was the conscious of the Arab world, of the Palestinian people. He was really loved by everybody in that part of the world. And when he died, I wrote a very, very moving article, front page article commemorating him. And yes, he was, we Palestinian, we don't have actually oil, we don't have gold. We have, brains like Edward Said, like Mahmoud Darwish. This is our real assets. And but not definitely Abu Mazen anyway. So, so that's the asset we have. So Edward Said is worshipped by the Palestinian people.
Gentleman here at the front, waiting.
Thank you. Have you been subjected to censorship, especially in the West? And how do you balance the act when it comes to issues of anti-terrorism, the taboos in the act? How do you handle these situations?
To be fair to this country, we've never been censored. Yeah, but you know, we had definitely a lot of encounters with security services here. I remember after 11th of September, because I was vocal on television, maybe I was mad, you know, talking about Al-Qaeda and these kind of things, and you know, taking my time. And so I remember I received a phone call from I think the MI5 said, you know, somebody said, you know, are you Mr. Atwan? I said, yes, I am Mr. Atwan. He said, you know, the FBI would like to interview you. I said, to interview me? Well, which television channel? I said, the FBI. I said, you know, FBI? I said, yes. He said, you know, the American Secret Service. I said, yes, because every time that time, you know, Calvin O'Shea, my friend, he has Sky all the time, and the BBC, and so I was always obsessed by this television and Newsnight. And anyway, I'll tell you a story about the Newsnight later, which is very, very embarrassing. So again, he said, you know, they cannot interview you directly. They have to do the interview through us. But because you are a British citizen, you can say no. I said, really? I said, yes. You know, I said, my God. I said, definitely, it is a big no. You know? I don't want to see them. I don't want to see you. I don't want to see anybody. What I know about Al-Qaeda, 11th of September, I said it over, you know, the screens, and also I wrote it in my newspaper. So never. But the other encounter, actually, which was more dangerous, it was after 7th of. It was after Madrid bombing. After Madrid bombing, again, I realized that through my own experience, it is definitely Al-Qaeda who was behind the bombing of Madrid. So I told my staff, you know, stay beside the email. We may receive an email. Al-Qaeda claiming responsibility for this. And our deadline in our newspaper was about 8 o'clock. So 7:30 that evening, the glorious email arrived. So, you know, it is a scoop. So I phoned Reuters. I gave them, you know, a copy of it. Also CNN also, and then, you know, once Reuters put it in the news, that's, you know, everybody is, and suddenly, you know, the MI5 came to our newspaper. And they wanted to confiscate everything. Said, do you have a court order? Yes, we have a court order. And, you know, we are entitled to that. And, you know, you should tell us about it. I said, why shall I tell you? I told Reuters, and go deal with Reuters. The email with Reuters, if you want to actually. Again, but my worst experience was after 11th of September. Again, I said, you know, from the day one, it is the fingerprint of Al-Qaeda, and Osama bin Laden told me after the bombing of the American embassies in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam, that they are going to revenge, and they will hit them where it hurts, and you know, this is a message to the American administration. So when they actually bombed the World Trade Center, I realized that it is, especially after the second plane hit it. So I realized this is the revenge, you know. So again, Alistair Lane from Reuters phoned me, and CNN, Peter Bergen, my friend, also phoned. I said, you know, what do you think? I said, definitely, this could be Al-Qaeda. And my God, you know. We had about 10 lines in our newspaper, telephone, you know, fixed lines, and my mobile, and then, you know, my home number. They were ringing at least for 2 months. Everybody on earth wanted to interview me. And I was, you know, shocked. I couldn't cope with these demands anyway. And I was scared because, again, it is 11th of September, and being a Muslim, being, you know, it is very, very scary, very frightening. I said, my God, what did I do? You know, why I put myself in such trouble? Anyway, I remember one day, you know, my assistant, Pat Syndrome, she's here. I was in the office, and she said to me, you know, don't go out from the front door. I said, why? She said, come and look and see. There were about 45 journalists and cameras waiting in front of our door, front door. So I had to, slip away from the back door, from fire exit, as if I am Madonna or Michael Jackson. so I had really, I enjoyed that moment. So I realized how those VIP celebrities are actually suffering under the, the media pressure. Again, my dealing with the British media here, it was fascinating. I admit that it is actually the positive side is much more the negative sides, and once there are a few incidents. For example, I remember after the invasion of Iraq, Mr. Andrew Neil, he has a program every Thursday night, something like that, and he had Diana Abbott and what's her name, Michael Portillo in his program. So he invited me to be his guest in that time, and we were in the defeating side because Saddam Hussein did not actually fight, and his army collapsed, and we were hugely embarrassed as Arabs. And anyway, so he said, Andrew Neil, he said to me, what do you think, Mr. Atwan? Now Iraq will be prosperous, it will be a model of democracy, a model of human rights, and everybody in the Middle East will envy the Iraqi people for the blessing which will come to them. What do you think? I think, look, Iraq will be a failed state, it will be dismembered, dismantled, there will be a resistance, and it will be awful. I think it will be a bad example for the American actually propaganda, so it wouldn't go right for them. He said, I bet you, literally he said, I bet you in 18 months, Iraq will be prosperous, it will be democracy, it will be actually a model of human rights. And I said, look, I bet you in 18 years, Iraq wouldn't have democracy. This is on air. And he said, okay. I said, I hope you will invite me after 18 months to your program and to see who's right and who's wrong. I have been waiting for 6 years for Mr. Andrew Neil to invite you for his program. And actually, my name was thrown to him about 3-4 times, and immediately he canceled my participations. Yeah, sorry.
The lady here at the front.
Just I'm interested to know a little bit more about your relation with Yasser Arafat. You said it's love and hate. And I'm a little bit astonished anyway, because now it's 60 years for the Nakba and for the suffering of the Palestinian people in a way. And I think Yasser Arafat, because you are a journalist, I think he remains a symbol of the Palestinian cause. And I would imagine, I don't know what would have happened without him being there and carrying this, at least at the political level, and being really considered as the Palestinian president all over the world. And I think today, especially you as a journalist, we should really, and even as Palestinian and Arabs, we should really commemorate him, because you mentioned Mahmoud Darwish, you mentioned Edward Said, and I think Yasser Arafat is as important, if we have to be, unjust. I mean, to compare what he did for the Palestinian cause is something wonderful. If you compare to what other Saddam Hussein or all those dictators did for their people. And I think today really we have maybe to do a foundation or institution to celebrate and to commemorate all those, his effort really to bring the Palestinian cause, because you said you were born with no shoes and all the suffering of the refugees. Yeah. And he make out of the refugees, he make them a nation, and really he fight for the right of the Palestinian as a nation. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a comment. I agree with you. And he actually kept the Palestinian identity. He started the resistance, Palestinian resistance. But I'm talking about the other side. I said, the human side of Yasser Arafat. He is highly respected. I don't dispute any word you said about him. And I hope he will be commemorated and remembered among the Palestinians.
There's somebody at the back there. If the mic can. Yeah,
Hi, Mr. Abdul Bari Atwan. Hi, everybody. I just need to ask actually about your vision to life, or about life after your experience with Osama bin Laden in specific, and with Yasser Arafat, especially when he's in his coming back to Ramallah. And the second question is about your magazine, al-Quds al-Arabi. What's actually the main thing does it give it to you? And what is the main thing you give it to that magazine as existence, if you want to say? Thank you very much.
Well, by next April we will celebrate our 20th birthday as a newspaper, a daily newspaper, which is, it's a dream. I didn't expect this newspaper to last actually 20 months. So we had a very difficult experience, bailiffs and debts collectors and all these kind of things. And we managed to keep it floating for all these years. And I think if the Arab media history is going to be written by objective people, I hope they will say nice things about us. As I said, talking about bin Laden and Yasser Arafat, I think life or death. I think I'm still young, to talk about death. No, I don't care. I am adventurous by nature, and I faced death several times. And I remember I was actually unconscious 3 times in my life, and I thought I passed away. First, as I said, when I had a car accident when I was going to meet Arafat in M4 to Heathrow airports, and I wake up in the hospital. Second time, I remember in early ages when we were in Egypt, they used to have this, boiler in the bathroom, and I remember I was playing basketball, and then I came back, and it was cold, and I enjoyed actually the hot bath, and forgotten about the boiler, and I ended actually again unconscious completely, and I was dragged fully naked from the bathroom. And so again, if for example my cousin who wasn't if he wasn't there, I could pass away easily. So again, the same thing when I went to interview Osama bin Laden. I don't need a scoop at that time because I'm editor-in-chief, and my life is reasonable. Have a family, have children. So why shall I be so adventurous? And but again, because I have to do it, and I want to do something.
Did he tell you anything which proved to be right after all these events and after all these years?
Well, actually, what he told me, and I remember maybe today, incidentally, I was talking to Rusi and St. Andrews. They had a conference about seminar about terrorism, and I said, look, maybe you don't trust us. This is the problem I'm facing in the Western world, to be honest. Once you have a mustache like Saddam Hussein, you are not trusted. You are not a proper journalist. So it's true. They have actually to check your credibility and your professionalism. It's always like that. When we used to say that the real war will start after the occupation of Iraq, people say, again, so it's Arabs are saying they're wishful thinking. Anyway, so I remember today, for example, I said to them, look at, we are waiting for the Congress to bail out this economic crisis. Have you noticed that, President Bush is asking for $700 billion. $700 billion. How much the cost of the war against terrorism until now? $700 billion. So shall I say that Osama bin Laden is winning, for example? Shall I say that Osama bin Laden predicted this? Shall I say that, Definitely they didn't like my observation. But what Osama bin Laden said to me, he said, look, we were behind the downfall of the Soviet Union. We involved them in a war of attrition for more than 7 years in Afghanistan. And, they pull out from Afghanistan, and actually that was the beginning of the end of the Soviet Empire. He said, look, I remember, he said, I cannot go and fight the American in their own mainland, simply because it is very expensive, and it is, the security measures very tight. So But if I manage to drag the American to fight them in my own turf, in my own ground, yeah, I will actually achieve huge things. And once they are dragged into the Middle East and fighting them in the Middle East, in my own territory, here, I will do to them the same way I did to the Soviet people. So it seems Osama bin Laden succeeded. You know, he managed to drag the American to the Middle East. They are fighting 2 wars now, unwinnable wars, one in Iraq and one in Afghanistan. So, and today or yesterday, Karzai actually saying that, asking the Saudi to mediate between Afghanistan government and Taliban to reach a compromise. So, yes, you know, he predicted the downfall of the American empire, and he predicted that he will launch a war of economic attrition against them, and it seems he's succeeding. But nobody dared to say that. You know, Osama bin Laden is partly, at least partly, is a cause of the bankruptcy which the American capitalist system is facing.
We've got time for about 2 more questions, so yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, left is not allowed.
You're next.
Well, first of all, thank you, Ian Black. My name is Makram Khouri, and I teach at the universities of Cambridge and Hertfordshire, where I lead the media studies. And I specialize in Arab media, and you, Mr. Atwan, as well as your newspaper, you are under my observation, not as a spy, but as an academic, 24 hours. May I say, and I'm actually talking as an academic, but not tonight, that you are, in my opinion, perhaps the most important living Arab journalist. I say that, and I have got evidence, but I'm not here only to praise you. Western journalists keep constantly asking me as an academic, how do you explain the fact, in their opinion, that Mr. Atwan holds a double speech? He says one thing in Arabic and another thing in English. How do you explain this, please?
With such friends who needs enemy. Anyway, I'll tell you something. I'm always asked these questions. You know, when you speaking on Sky News or CNN, and you are very sophisticated, you are very calm, using facts and arguing, and you are not the same person when you are interviewed by Al Jazeera or al-Arabi or other Arabic channels. What's the secret? Okay, you know, it's very simple. We in the Arab world, you know, we are hypocrite. I know we are hypocrite, but you know, I want to emphasize on that. We always used to say that, you know, we need Arabic speakers who can talk to the West on their own language, in their own style, on their own sophistication. We cannot use our style, which is very backward, you know, in order to win the minds and the hearts of the West, simply because they are the major powers, the superpowers there. So when somebody like me comes and actually talk to the CNN or BBC World or Newsnight or Sky News in a very sophisticated way, trying to be objective and to control my temper, which is a very difficult task, actually. So, you know, they say, oh, you speak different, you have 2 faces, different language. Look, it is very simple. Who is watching Newsnight in this country, for example? You know, maybe 1.5 million, 1 million or 2 million maximum. But who is watching, for example, Manchester United game, for example? You know, 22 millions. So, you know, here is the people who are watching the news and political programs are the elite. You know, the elite, and those people are extremely intellectual. So you have to actually upgrade your standard to their standard. This is one thing. Who are watching the political news and political programs in the Arab world, in Al Jazeera? Mainly, you know, people who are semi-illiterate. So the problem is you cannot use, if I use what, you know, my style with the CNN or BBC or to the Al Jazeera, I would be, you know, thrown away from the studio because nobody will watch me. They will say, oh, he's boring. He's not saying that. So you have again to try to appeal to those people. So this is the problem. I'm changing the style, but I'm not changing the ideas. You know, I'm just to maybe using different language. And anyway, speaking in Arabic is different than speaking in English. This is very important. And in Arabic, they tease you. They are not cold, and very cool like the British presenter here. Well, Mr. Atwan, what do you think of? They prepare the questions as a very word by word. But if you are in Al Jazeera, tell me why you said that. They are fighting and screaming all the time. So how can this is the problem. It's as simple as that.
Gentleman over here.
Please, I would like to hear small words about the core of the problem, the center problem of the Middle East. For example, will Tony Blair be an honest broker? Will the Americans at all honest about peace in the Middle East? You as a journalist, how you have been driven that when you speak about the Middle East, automatically you are speaking about terrorism. So you are caught between the two. I mean, there is a problem in the Middle East. I mean, Saddam or bin Laden or what's happening in Iraq or in Afghanistan, those, for me, as somebody who's following the media, are just things in the vicinities. What about the problem in Gaza? How are you going to handle Abu Mazen with all these dinosaurs around him? I mean, these are the issues which will lead us to a sort of a peaceful way in life. Thank you.
I tried to make this evening is a very pleasant evening, because seriously, if I want to talk about these depressing issues, I think we will be crying by now. So anyway, there is a lot of cries in the book. I try to avoid, how for example, my grandmother was shot dead by the Israelis. How my colleagues were actually killed, and simply because I didn't want to depress you. Talking about Gaza, for example, again, the problem is, the problem which I'm facing here, they don't take us seriously. I remember BBC, for example, which I admire, and I'm grateful because they gave me the platform. I remember when Sharon decided to pull out from Gaza. They invited me to a talk, and they brought an Israeli lecturer from Haifa University, and my friend David Sells was there. And this professor, painted a very rosy picture about the withdrawal from Gaza. It will be the beginning, and the peace will be the West Bank again, and there will be a momentum after that, and Gaza will again, it will be a Singapore and something like that. So when it comes to when it comes to me, and I said, look, Gaza will never be a Singapore or a stable country, or there will be problems, and simply because it is not, the Israelis are not withdrawing simply because they want Gaza to be free, because of the demographic reasons, because they cannot afford to keep Gaza anymore. So they do it for their own interest. And I presume maybe in a month time or 6 weeks time, there will be more trouble in Gaza. And my colleagues of the BBC, they were, oh, you are pessimistic, you don't understand the region, you, all these kind of things. And again, after 6 weeks or maybe 2 months, Gaza became worse than it used to be. This is the problem. Gaza is a front to all human beings. When 1.5 million caged in Gaza, people are not allowed to leave, and my family is from Gaza, and the people are really suffering. And in certain stages, fuel were not allowed in, food were not allowed in, medical were not allowed in. And people really suffering, and the whole world was watching, and as if nothing happened. 1.5 million human beings were there. So I actually, my heart was bleeding for them. And the problem is, even I didn't have the chance to talk about it on the British media. I wasn't invited to talk about this tragedy, simply because they don't want to upset the Israelis in certain cases. This is even look at the foreign news now. You don't see a lot of foreign news, a lot of programs about what's happening in Iraq, or what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in the West Bank, what's happening about the peace process, which is shredded completely, eaten completely by the settlement. So this is the problem. Gaza is a tragedy, and again, what shocked me when I went for the first time after maybe 35 years to Gaza, after I left and I went back to Gaza and I wrote about my experience in this book, I was shocked. After about 38 years of Israeli occupation of Gaza, no single hospital was built, no single road was paved, no complex of housing was set up by the Israelis, nothing at all. It was the same, exactly the same road which was digged by the British mandate, the same hospital which was built by the British mandate, the same school which were built by UNRWA or the British mandate. Nothing. They did nothing at all to those 1.5 million. This is the problem, and I was shocked to see that. And why they didn't do this, for example? They were responsible for Gaza. So it is a tragedy.
I was going to end up asking a question which is related to what you've just said. You end your book on a very gloomy note. You say that your hope is that you will be buried in Palestine. Is that the best you can hope for?
Yes, actually, the problem again, if I want to retire, where shall I go? I wish I can retire on the coast of Mediterranean, coast of Gaza, coast of Ashdod, coast of Jaffa. Why, for example, Jews from Golders Green, for example, or Finchley can go tomorrow to Gaza or Ashdod, or not to Gaza, to Ashdod, to Haifa, to Hebron, to everywhere, and they can have a beautiful house there and subsidized by the government. Why, for example, my children, myself, who I was born there, family were there for thousands of years, why I cannot go and have a hut by the Mediterranean Sea in Gaza and Ashdod, for example, or Led or whatever there? Why I cannot retire there and be buried there? That's really a dream for me. Why those people who nothing to do with Palestine can go tomorrow, come from Russia, from Chile, from Argentina, from all over the world, from India, from Ethiopia, why they can go and be a citizen and settle there, and I cannot go? It is bitterness, a huge bitterness. So that's why now I'm really advocating for one-state solution. I said we want to live together. We can live together. We are living together here. We are living together in Canada. We are living together. And we used to live together everywhere. Why we cannot live together? We did not actually hurt the Jews when we were living together. Before 1950, Iraq, the Jews represent less than 1% of the Iraqi population. There were full 4 ministers in the Iraqi cabinet. 4 ministers, Jewish ministers, they were there. So this is before, I think, 1948 or something like that. So we can live together. That's my always dream. Okay, let us coexist together. We had enough of these wars. As Palestinian, honestly, we would like to be like any human being. We would like to have houses. We would like to have passports. We would like to move freely. We would like actually to have poets, to have pop stars, to have belly dancers, to have everything. Why not? Our life is very gloomy. Even if we have a good belly dancer, she doesn't say I am a Palestinian. She say I'm Egyptian or Lebanese or Syrian. Even if a Palestinian open a restaurant in London here, he doesn't say it is a Palestinian restaurant. He says it's a Lebanese restaurant. So we want to have our identity back. It's a gloomy because I cannot see any optimism coming. I cannot see the peace process. We know that it is completely dead now. We were hoping that we will have a little state in about 22% of historic Palestine. Even that dream is evaporating now, eroding completely. So that's why I'm gloomy. I wish I can paint a rosy picture about the future, but I believe without coexisting, without actually living together, without working together, without sharing everything, I don't think we will have peace in the Middle East.
Abdul Bari Atwan, thank you very much. The book is there, the author is there.